guys, today we're going to talk about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. First, let's talk about what photosynthesis is, and here's the definition. It's the process used by plants and some protists to convert light energy into chemical energy that can be used later as fuel for the organism's activities. So if we take a look at this picture, we can see that this little plant is taking in sunlight and water and carbon dioxide, and it is letting out oxygen. But the really important part about photosynthesis is that it's making chemical energy. So it's storing up energy that the plant can use later to do all of the activities that it needs to do, things like making new cells through mitosis or getting ready to reproduce. So in plants, photosynthesis happens in mostly the leaves. But if we can zoom in a bit, so individual cells will actually be the ones who are doing this process of photosynthesis. And if we zoom in even further, it's the chloroplasts that are doing photosynthesis. So we learned about chloroplasts when we learned about organelles inside cells, and chloroplasts are the organelles inside plant cells that do photosynthesis. The other process we're going to talk about today is cellular respiration. So the definition of this is it is a process that takes place in organisms that converts chemical energy into energy that fuels cell processes. So in cellular respiration, an organism will take that stored up chemical energy and will turn it into energy that it's actually using to do different processes. So in plants, where does cellular respiration happen? Well, it happens in leaves and in other plant cells. And if we zoom in even farther, the organelle that's responsible for doing cellular respiration is the mitochondria. We referred to it often as the powerhouse of the cell. Well, this is why. It's the organelle that takes in stored up chemical energy and turns it into energy that the cell is actually going to use for processes. Let's go into a little bit of detail about photosynthesis. So here's a picture of a chloroplast. Light energy, carbon dioxide, and water are all going to go into the chloroplast. Light is coming from the sun, or if it's inside, some kind of growing light. Carbon dioxide is coming from the atmosphere, and water can come in through the roots, or it can also come in through the atmosphere. So as the chloroplast is doing photosynthesis, it will be releasing oxygen and sugar. Sugar is that stored up chemical energy. This is why we sometimes say that photosynthesis is the process of a plant making food for itself. It's really making a sugar or something similar that's storing up energy that the plant can use later. We can think of photosynthesis as a recipe. The reactants, these are the things that are like the ingredients. It's the things that go in. So water, carbon dioxide, and light energy are required for photosynthesis to happen. Those are going into the plant. Those are the ingredients, the reactants. The products are the things that are made from the reactants. So it's like your final product after you use up all your ingredients. And in this case, for photosynthesis, it's sugar, specifically glucose, and oxygen. So the reactants are going in, the process takes place, and the products are produced and released. And remember that this doesn't just happen in the whole plant, it's happening in individual plant cells in the chloroplast. If you'd like, you can think about it as a chemical reaction. This is something called chemical equation, and the chemical equation for photosynthesis says that it takes 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water, react with some light, and that will produce 1 molecule of sugar, this is glucose, and 6 molecules of oxygen. Let's talk about cellular respiration with the same kind of details that we talked about photosynthesis. In cellular respiration, we have sugar and oxygen coming into the mitochondria. So sugar is really just whatever kind of food we're using to get energy. Oxygen is coming into the mitochondria. And the process of cellular respiration will release water, carbon dioxide, and ATP. ATP is energy, and that's the actual kind of energy that a cell will use to do anything it needs to do. You may have realized that the things going in to the mitochondria for cellular respiration were the same things that came out of the chloroplast after photosynthesis. And the things that are coming out of the mitochondria after cellular respiration are some of the things needed to go into the chloroplast for photosynthesis. And that's true, they are closely linked processes. They kind of depend on each other. I do want you to notice in this diagram that the mitochondria is creating ATP for the cell to do any of the things that it needs to do, but it's also releasing a little bit of heat. That's kind of a waste product, a byproduct, and it's just released. These two processes seem to be closely linked. Let's officially compare and contrast them. So photosynthesis only occurs in plant cells and some protist cells. It only occurs in cells that have chloroplasts, whereas cellular respiration occurs in all eukaryotic cells. Every single eukaryotic cell has cell processes and it needs energy to be released. In plant cells, the sugar coming in came right from the plant. In animal cells and other protist cells, that's why animals and protists, some protists are consumers. It takes the sugar, that stored chemical energy that a plant made, and uses it to create its own ATP energy. So within the cell, photosynthesis occurs in chloroplasts and cellular respiration occurs in mitochondria. I hope that you remember that both chloroplasts and mitochondria are very special organelles, as they both have double membranes in their own DNA, and it is theorized that each of those was once an individual prokaryotic organism. If we're talking about energy in photosynthesis, the chloroplast will take in light energy and convert it to chemical energy. Remember that chemical energy is stored in sugar. In cellular respiration, the mitochondria will take the chemical energy stored in sugars and it'll create ATP energy that the cell actually uses. So remember, if cellular respiration is happening in a plant cell, those sugars, that chemical energy, came right from that plant. If it's happening in an animal cell or another protist cell that's a consumer, it had to eat something to get those sugars to create ATP. And that's it.